The Church cares, and so does the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. Hi, I'm Ann DeSantis, Executive Director. In 2015, the Mercedarian Friars came together because they wanted to start a foundation to help families in crisis. And that's exactly what we've been doing over these years. Whether it be something to do with divorce, separation, trauma, job loss, loss of a loved one, or other adversities, we've helped so many families get through those tough times through the spiritual works of mercy. We'd love to hear from you. Please do get in touch with us for our services. They are prayer, priestly consultation, podcasts and videos, and programs and events. We look forward to hearing from you. Just go to nonatus.org and get in touch with me. I look forward to hearing from you. God bless.
Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry present Journeys in Faith. Now, here's Ann DeSantis.
Good evening. Welcome to Journeys in Faith here on Fiat Ministry Network. This is Ann DeSantis. It's great to be here. And I have another wonderful guest for all of you this evening. She's also a very good friend of mine. I have Dr. Mary Amore, the Executive Director of Mays Lake Ministries. Welcome, Dr. Amore. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, Ann, thank you for having me. It's just an honor to be with you and to share our conversation with your audience. Yes,
that's right. And for those of you who saw the advertisement and you know what the topic of this show is that we're going to talk about Pope Francis' Worldwide Synod. And it's going on starting last year, 2021, and going through 2023. And so I'm going to read something to all of you about the Worldwide Synod, because I think it'll give you just a little bit of a background about what it is that the Pope has laid out a framework for bishops from all Catholic dioceses to reach out to communities and listen to them worldwide. He's asked for earth-encompassing synod on the synodality. Synod is an ancient Christian practice of listening, discussing, and discerning beliefs. And I did read that right from the internet there. But just to give you all a basic idea, what it is, it's like a worldwide listening session to open up the gates for those who have left the church for whatever those reasons are, and to welcome them back. So that's going to be our topic. But before we do that, I would love to introduce you to Mary and to her beautiful bio so you can learn more about Mary Amore. Is that Dr. Mary Amore is the Executive Director. She holds a Doctor Ministry degree in Liturgy and Master of Arts in Pastoral Studies from Catholic Theological Union. Dr. Amore is the author of 3 books. Those are Primary Symbols of Worship and the Call of Participation, Every Day with Mary, and Every Day with Joseph, as well as the creator of 2 DVD series. And those DVD series are called Eucharist, Pathway of Transformation, Healing and Discipleship, and From Mary's Heart to Yours, published by Pauline Media. A Cardinal Bernardine Scholar and distinguished member of the North American Academy of Liturgy, Mary has been a presenter of the LA Congress, University of Dallas Ministry Conference, the Diocese of New Hampshire Ministry Conference, as well as conducting parish missions, retreats, and adult faith formation programs. Dr. Amore is also the creator and host of 2 cable television shows, Soul Snacking with Dr. Mary Amore and A Willing Spirit, and has hosted a radio show on Radio Maria. Dr. Amore serves as the full-time executive director of Mays Lake Ministries, and she's a proud member of the Catholic Speakers Bureau, and CMG Booking. I know that was a lot for me to read, so hopefully I didn't miss anything there, but you have a wonderful bio.
Thanks, Ann. The only thing you missed is I'm a wife and a mom and a grandmother of two little adorable girls. So, and those are my heart and joy. So
That's right. Sometimes when we read those bios, they tend to focus on that professional side of us. And I know mine the same way, but you're right. That wife and mom, that's the vocation, right?
yes,
And probably the most important piece for all of us. And
indeed.
I thought we could start out with, if you could tell us about yourself and the ministry. You are the executive director at Mays Lake Ministries. And I believe the website is at mayslakeministries.org.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes,
think
it is,
so.
right.
For people watching, you might want to just open up your phone or your laptop later on and check out the website. They're located in the Chicago area. So in terms of what we were talking about with this synod and that walking with people,
Mhm.
you do that a lot with the retreats that you have there. What have you learned about the people? And also please do tell us about Mays Lake.
Thank you, Ann. You know what? I've been executive director of Mays Lake Ministries for 15 years now. We're in our 30th year. And really, over the course of these 15 years, it's an honor. People call and they're searching. Our human being, our hearts are made for God, and they won't rest until we find Him. And so many people, as you said, are they've lost their way, or they've kind of just grown cold in their faith. And so when they come to us, we're a center for spiritual direction. And we could talk about this later, but spiritual direction is a really wonderful way for people to actually get personalized guidance and accompaniment on their spiritual journey to Jesus and back to the church. We've got 45 spiritual directors who are gifted in many, many areas of life's problems. And with COVID, we had to take all of our programs online as well. So we can minister to people across the United States, not just in the Chicago area. Yes, we do in-person events here, but we also can do spiritual direction and counseling via Zoom or phone. So there's no one we can't help. And you know what, when a call comes in, 9 times out of 10, people they're searching. They want to deepen their relationship with Jesus, and they just don't know how. And even if they're attending church, just because you attend church on Sunday doesn't mean you have that really deep relationship with Jesus. So I think that's what the Synod is calling people, is to, we want to hear people's stories. We want to meet them where they are so that we can help bring them closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
Wonderfully
stated. And I can also vouch for Mays Lake because I've actually done the spiritual direction with one of your spiritual directors in the past and got so much from that. And I know another personal friend of both you and myself, Brian Cayley, he is also one of your spiritual directors. And so it's just a wonderful thing. And then, of course, I also did a program for you over this past year called Becoming More Compassionate, which was 3 sessions that they could do with me on the topic having to do with a book that I wrote, The Love and Care for the Marginalized.
Yes.
And so that was also something that I experienced in working with Mays Lake, and I can't say enough good about it. And so please do, for you watching, if you're looking for a spiritual director or you just want to find out more about the ministry itself, mayslakeministries.org. And although they're located in Chicago, they do a lot of things online. So it doesn't really matter where you're located. Although if you are in the Chicago area, you do have to visit, right? It's a wonderful place to visit. So have you ever had encounters with people, and maybe over the years being with your experience, someone who really is searching or felt some kind of rejection from the church for whatever that could be, right? And during our second half of the show, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about those reasons that people leave the Catholic Church and how this synod, how it can help for people to feel that welcoming to come back, right? So with that said, I mean, have you ever experienced that? Maybe someone coming to you, of course, you don't need to go into all the details,
Sure.
but what would you say for people who are in that spot? What are they feeling when they come to you?
You know what? A lot of times they're feeling lost. You know, they know that something's missing from their life, but you know, through life itself, you know, putting up barriers or bad decisions they've made, they found themselves feeling on the outside looking in, when in fact we are all you know, outside looking in into God's heart. I want to share one story with you. There was a young girl I knew. I heard about her story, and she had, you know, been raised Catholic and then drifted away from the church through bad decisions. And I won't get into those, but you know, God kept pulling at her, and so she would come to church and just sit in the back, a Catholic church, and she was just sit in the back pew and everything. And the pastor saw her do this, you know, maybe like 6 weeks in a row, and he went up to her and he said, "I noticed that you're new." And see, that's one of the things that we need to be noticed. We need to be noticed. We need to be heard. We need to feel like we make a difference. Anyway, so he said, you know, are you new here? And she decided to tell him her whole story. And she waited for him to do this, you know, and he didn't. He said, you know, you're welcome here anytime. He said, you know, you have a home here. This is the church. And what that priest did is he gave that woman space for God to do what God needs to do. And so often we feel like we have to do it as human beings. We have to do everything. We don't give enough space or credit to the Holy Spirit. We're vessels, and you know, and so we need to help people. So when people call here looking for spiritual direction, you know, I always implore the gift of the help of the Holy Spirit, so I can hear what I need to hear and help direct them to who they need to see. So that, again, everybody's journey is different. It's very personal. But the goal is the same, to be in relationship with Jesus. You know.
Thank you for sharing on that, because it is so true. Everyone has that different experience. Not everyone's experience is exactly the same. I just thank you for sharing, because you get a lot of food for thought for the second half of the show, where we're going to talk about those reasons and why our Holy Father has decided to do this, and also give you some ideas of how you can get involved. Now, in my archdiocese, I'll talk a little bit about this in the second half, we are involved in it. Not all of the Catholic churches are partaking in it as much as others, but it doesn't mean that you can't find out more. So stay tuned here on this channel. We'll be right back here on Journeys in Faith. Welcome back to Journeys in Faith. Thank you so much for joining myself and my wonderful guest, Dr. Mary Amore, as we're talking about the Worldwide Synod from our Holy Father, which began last year, 2021, and it's going through until next year. And what it is, it's like a worldwide listening session to those people who feel that they are not being served in the church, or maybe they've left the church for one reason or another. And so during the first half of the show, Dr. Amore was just talking about her work with Mays Lake Ministries, and how some of those people feel who are looking for some kind of depth of spirituality. And so I thought maybe we could talk about this, Dr. Amore, is just that the reasons, some of those reasons why people just decide to leave. I'll just start it out and maybe you can add to it. I do think that sometimes people leave the church because they just don't care for the parish that they're in, whether it be a pastor that they don't like, or some people that they don't feel like supported by, or that they don't have friends there. And then they start to get bored. Maybe they don't understand the church and that the Eucharist is the gift, right? And you're there for the Eucharist. A lot of people say that doesn't matter where you go to church because it's the Holy Eucharist. But I think sometimes that it's not a bad thing that if someone is unhappy at a church, you have two options, right? I mean, you can either go to the pastor, go to the people that work there and say, listen, I'm not feeling like I'm being fed. And maybe that's just a matter of them learning more about the gifts of our faith. That's true. The catechesis part of it. But maybe there's some truth to it too, right? Maybe the leadership isn't good. Maybe they really and truly aren't feeling like they are part of that community. So I didn't know if you had anything to say on that piece.
Oh, and thank you. Yes, as you said when you were introducing me, I do parish missions, and so I go to a lot of different parishes throughout the country. And what I always tell,
it's okay.
Excuse me. Okay, sorry. So anyway, so what I hear people, and they don't feel welcomed. They don't feel like they belong, and or the priest said something at the homily that just drove them crazy, and just all the natural things that happen, and we can't please everyone every moment. So what I tell people is never let another human being stand in the way of your relationship with Jesus. If you are coming to mass every Sunday and you're so aggravated by what is being said or something, shake the dust off your feet and find another parish. And as you said earlier, just now, a lot of people will say to me, why do you stay Catholic? The Eucharist. I mean, once people really
Amen.
understand that the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist, there is no way you will ever walk, and you'll never leave. It doesn't mean you don't feel more welcomed at one particular parish than another, because that's the human element of it. Some parishes are more welcoming. We all have different personalities and temperaments. And so you're going to find a place, a parish that you'll feel more at home with than at somewhere else. So just because it's parish boundaries, like, when we were growing up, you were in this parish or that parish. Now I think people shop around because they do want to feel welcome. They want to feel like, I'm happy you're here. Right?
So well said, because it is a really true statement that, not to say that everyone in the world needs to go shopping all over the place for churches, right? Because sometimes there is a match with the church that's in your neighborhood, right? The Catholic parish, there might be a match there. But I don't think it's a terrible thing that if you aren't feeling like you are being fed, as they say, or that you're not getting what you need from their leadership or for something else, my approach would be to go to the pastor or go to the priest there, go to the people that work there and see what the reaction is. And if you get a positive reaction, like, yeah, let's sit down, let's talk, what can we do to make you feel welcome? And what ministries are you interested in maybe helping out with? Because there's no better way to feel part of your church than to actually get active there too.
Absolutely. Right? And you hit it on the head, right? I mean, to be involved in the life of a parish is nourishing all in itself. And a lot of people, they're not. And so that's why they feel like they're just strangers there, and no one knows their name, and it's like, cheers. Yes. You want to go where someone knows your name, because that's very powerful. And
it is. It is. And I will admittedly say, not to elaborate, but it did happen to me that my family and I did switch churches. And the church that we were at before was a very good church, just a lot bigger. And now we're in a smaller church, and it's much more, it's a hands-on. It's very hands-on. And I've been able to get very active there. And there's nothing that feels better than really knowing that you're doing something to help your parish community and that you're part of the family, right? And so I do think that makes a tremendous difference. maybe one of those other reasons for some people watching could be like a divorce or a separation, or that they hadn't gotten an annulment. I know sometimes people leave the Catholic Church because of those reasons. They decide, well, I never got that annulment, so I'm just going to go to this other church because I don't have to worry about that. So, and I have to bring up, of course, the ministry that I'm
Yes.
with, the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, as executive director, because part of what we do is that pastoral accompaniment for families in crisis. We've done a lot of work with those affected by divorce. So if you ever have those questions that have to do with like an annulment or something, be sure to go to our website at nonnatus.org. In fact, I think there's probably a commercial at the beginning of the show. And make that appointment with one of our priests that you can talk about those things. Because if that's what's holding somebody back, I would say, don't leave the church for that reason.
Nope.
Because you can still go to Mass and even receive communion if you're not in a state of mortal sin. I mean, that's what it comes down to, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
so if someone is not in a state of mortal sin, then they can receive communion, right?
Thank
And
you for
so-
clarifying that. I think that we need to restate that.
Mhm.
Yes, if you are in the state of grace, but you are divorced and not remarried, yes, you can still come to the Eucharistic table. I knew a woman that had stayed away for 30 years. It wasn't her fault she got the divorce, but she was divorced, and we finally were talking one day, and she was never remarried, and she said, I haven't received communion in 30 years. I went, oh my gosh. So, again, we talked, I counseled her and everything, and then she came back to the table, and nothing changed in her life except that now she was coming fullness to her faith, and it just brought her such joy and peace. So, and that's what's missing when we're away from our churches, is we've got that joy and peace that comes from being with Jesus and one another.
Yeah, it has to do with that one another piece too, doesn't it? Like you said.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing on that. Those stories really I think help all of us when we hear that we're not the only one that feels that way. Sometimes if you're watching this and you're feeling like that, very alienated, very sort of apart from everybody else, that just remember that there are other people who have been through that. And I think that's why the Pope is doing this, because he doesn't want this church to be just people that are there to serve just those that are inside the walls of the church, but we're all part of that human family, right? We're not just Catholic and not remembering that we're part of this whole worldwide, right? Everyone's included in that human family and invited to come to the table and be a part of us. We keep the doors open for them to want to be drawn into the Catholic Church, want to become Catholic, want to learn more about their faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think it's beautiful. I do want to mention a couple websites that I found online that I think might be helpful for people watching. One is the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Their website is the usccb.org. And it says that the Synod on Synodality is a 2-year process of listening and dialogue, beginning with a solemn opening in Rome. And that began on October 9th and 10th of 2021, because the USCCB actually has a page for that. So you can just go to that website, usccb.org, and you can Google Synod, that's SYNOD, and learn more. There's another one on the Vatican website on the Synod. It's at the synod.va. Just simply go there and you can read about, directly from the source, from the Vatican website, what the Synod is and how the Pope really wants to take this seriously. I think it's a great thing because they did a survey. A lot of the dioceses and archdioceses are doing these surveys where they send them out to the parishioners and asking people to get their opinion about not only what's good about their parish, but what isn't so good and what could use improvement. And then they have these listening sessions where you can come together with parishioners and talk to them, not just parishioners, maybe friends of theirs who don't go to church, who want to be heard. Now, some of the churches aren't doing that. And some of them are doing something different where they're taking the results to the surveys, but then amongst the leaders of the church, they're like trying to work internally that way. So there's like kind of different ways that
Mhm.
some of the dioceses and the archdioceses are handling it. I don't believe that all of them are doing those listening sessions,
Right.
but I would recommend to those watching that if you want to
Mhm.
get involved in it, I think the first place might be to go to those two websites, synod.va and then the usccb.org, and just read about it, learn about it. And then maybe what you could do is contact your local church and ask them if they are doing those sessions, or if there's any way that you could, if you have some issues, could you sit and talk to a priest or someone there about the reasons why you're not going to church or why you switched out to go someplace else,
Mhm.
whatever that is.
Yeah.
So,
And it's just so heartwarming that Pope Francis is really doing this, that he cares that much about all of us, you and me and anyone else that's listening. He uses the image a lot of the church as a field hospital. And I love that image, because what is it? That's a mass unit. You have to tend to people's wounds, their spiritual wounds, right on the spot. And that's really what he's trying to do. He is trying to bind up our wounds and lead us back to Jesus, back to our church. And the medicine that you do that with is mercy and compassion. And I think that this is just a wonderful time in our church to be able to be seen and heard and to make a difference.
yeah, that's right. Seen and heard. And it's so important because there's some people that have that image that the church, all they care about is money. I mean, I think that's another reason you hear that,
Yeah.
like they just want my money and don't really care about me. So if that's your reason for leaving the church, take it to the church that you left, go back, because I do think there's a different attitude now, right, in the world right now in the Catholic
Mhm.
Church. The fact that the Pope is doing this and having those listening sessions, um, because the first and foremost is faith formation, practicing our faith, the sacramental life, all these things. I mean, that's why the Catholic Church exists. But the mercy and compassion, I do believe that our Holy Father has really brought that to the forefront, because they're the tools that we do it, right?
Mhm.
When we're Catholic, it's not a checkbox thing. It's not like,
No.
okay, I went to Sunday Mass, I went to confession, I gave my envelope this week. I went to the prayer group they had. It's not about that. You can do all those things, but if it's not including also that element of being a kind, nice, and good person on top of it, then it
Right.
really doesn't mean anything,
No.
and I
No.
think that people, you hear them say that, the word hypocrite sometimes, that people who are religious or practice faith, maybe not just Catholic faith, but
Mhm.
people who are very much into religion, but then you see a different side of them. I think that's where our Holy Father is trying to bring it all together and say, you know what, this matters, that way that we interact with one another.
Mhm.
It matters how we show people that we love them
Mhm.
and that we care enough to listen. Listening is a gift, isn't it? I mean,
It
I
is.
think that when we listen, it's a gift to the other person to be heard. Now, when you listen to somebody, you might be hearing things that you may not agree with, right?
Mhm.
It could be even something in the sin realm, like they might tell you something where you're like, wow, that was a mistake. They should never have done that.
Right.
But it's not about that when you're listening to them. What it is about is let them tell their story
Mhm.
uninterrupted, and then you're guiding them gently along to the teachings of the church and the
Mhm.
gifts of the church. Because I think when people just hear like, well, you should never have done that, that was a sin, or you need to get to confession for that. And sometimes, it's true. All the things are true. Maybe they do need to get to confession for it if they are practicing Catholics, right? And
Right.
or away from the church. But we never do it like in a way that isn't gentle and guiding, right?
Mhm.
And I think you would agree with me. I think we talked about this before we started the program, is that if somebody's watching right now and thinking, I'm not fit to come back to the Catholic Church. I haven't been to confession in a while. I've been leading a life that's really kind of maybe against the church teachings. The church is saying, come back as you are, right?
Yes.
And we'll guide you to the right places that you can get help, whether it be going to confession or talking to a priest or whatever it is. But,
Mhm.
we don't expect people to come back 100% catechized and perfect Catholics.
and it's impossible. I mean, we can't be perfect, or we can't perfect ourselves or even be better people away from Jesus. So, yes, if we feel like we're wounded souls and we've done all these terrible things, it's okay. Come back anyway and just bring your heart. Jesus is just looking for your heart. That's all. He'll do the rest. Through the church, through the people that you worship with, through the sacraments. Really quick story. Do we have time for a story?
Oh, yes.
Okay, then. I was raised in the 1950s, and at that time, that was pre-Vatican II. And the good sisters at my Catholic school, my mom was Lutheran, they used to tell me, your mom's going to go to hell, because she wasn't Catholic. And so, I was 8 years old, and I used to tell my mom, Sister Mary Agnes said you're going to go to hell. And my mother, in her infinite wisdom, said, oh, sis, don't worry. There's one God and many ways to come to him. Well, that sat with me for my whole life. When I was 36 years old, my mother was dying. And so she was in the emergency room, and I was the only one there. And the priest came out and he said, your mother's dying. Is there anything I can do for you? And the blink of an eye, I said, yes. Can you make her Catholic? I said, because she always wanted to be Catholic, but never had the chance. I just wanted her to go to heaven. That's all. And this angel that God sent to me said, hold on. He went in. I thought he was making her Catholic. He comes out. I said, is everything okay? He goes, everything's just fine. What I realized later is that even though I was 36 years old, this priest was talking to an 8-year-old little girl who just wanted to get her mother to heaven. And we have to be aware of meeting people where they are. Mm-hmm. And that only involves listening. If somebody is really wounded, it's going to come out when you sit and talk to them. That's not the time to tell them how wrong they are. That's the time to embrace them with the love and mercy of God. And then again, allow God to do what the Lord needs to do. So I think that's an important thing, is to meet people where they are.
Amen. Thank you for sharing that story. And admittedly, you told that one on another program, which I'm glad you said it again, because it can never be heard enough when you have a wonderful story like that. That's a teaching moment, right? Teachable moment. And so thank you so much, Dr. Amori, my friend. So glad that you're a guest here on this show. You're going to have to come back again, and maybe we'll do another part to this. But I want to also thank our audience for being here. And please do, as we said, check out more information about the Synod. Just Google it, learn more. Go to your local parish or your archdiocese or diocese and find out, because the Holy Father cared enough to do this. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Amen. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Amori, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Anne. Keep up the good work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. So everyone will see you here next week on Journeys in Faith on Fiat Ministry Network.
Journeys of Faith is a production of Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry. For more information about Journeys of Faith, email info@fiatministrynetwork.tv. And be sure to friend, follow, and like us on social media. Just search Journeys in Faith with Ann DeSantis.